So what do you want out of a second edition version of a game? Examples in my collection and titles that I enjoy: Runebound 2nd Edition versus Runebound 3rd Edition, Arkham Horror 1st versus 2nd, Pathfinder the Adventure card game, Rune Lords and the other series, but Edition 1, and now Pathfinder the Adventure card game core set. I feel like, in terms of board games, a 2nd edition has to do a couple of things in order to justify purchasing it over the 1st edition. And the most obvious is it has to be a title that I really enjoy. The narrative, the mechanics, the play style, something that I'm very, very happy playing. So purchasing a 2nd edition, upgrading to that next edition, could be 3rd edition, is the next logical step. There are a couple of games in my collection that are 1st edition games that there's nothing wrong with them. They're good. They work, but for various reasons, I don't feel like they justify a 2nd edition. Perfect example would be Furia Dracula. An amazing game, but I really don't feel the need to make that jump from the GW edition to the Fantasy Flight edition. So we need to have that continuation. What I want to see in a 2nd edition is, first of all, a refinement of the 1st edition. Naturally, any game, when it's released, the rules are at a working level. There's certain pieces that are going to really work. There's certain pieces that aren't going to work so much. And a 2nd edition should improve upon what is already out there and update mechanics or bring in line board gaming developments to make that 2nd edition. I'd also like to see a jump in the narrative, a continuation of the narrative. And Runebound is a great example of this. In 2nd edition, there's no spoilers I'm giving away, this is the core game. In 2nd edition Runebound, the heroes were fighting against a necromancer lord who was looking to resurrect the dragon lords. So you had these kind of two stories going on, where behind the scenes you had to face this necromancer, and at the same time you had to stop the Dragon Lords. Runebound 3rd edition continued that. Now they broke the story up into two separate scenarios, two completely different missions. So there's a certain type of continuity or a certain type of familiarity to the game, just further refinement. The last piece, which doesn't always happen, but what I'd like to see, especially if I'm going to make that jump from one edition to the next, is some sort of innovation, a little bit of a risk. It might be hit or miss, but in improving and pushing the experience, again, going back to Runebound, the custom dice for movement in Runebound existed in 2nd and 3rd edition. 3rd edition replaced combat. Instead of rolling dice, you have these tokens that you cast out. It is completely different. Some players look and say, I'm really not that sure of it, but I appreciate it where it was bold and innovative. So from that perspective, making the jump, I want to see things streamlined. I want to see things building. I want to see a little bit of continuity and a little bit of boldness. And that's going to kind of push me over to make that decision, jumping from 2nd to 3rd or 1st to 2nd, or from one edition to the next.